Welcome to the HVAC-ology experience, where we talk about all things HVAC industry, topics that are so hot they are cool.
Episode 13, here we are. Kelly Patterson, how are you today?
I am so happy it's Friday, and I'm happy to have reached our 13th episode. I feel like it's very lucky.
It is very lucky. You know, whenever you're on the elevators and you see that the elevator doesn't have the 13th floor on so many of these buildings, the superstition involved. That should have been one of our fun facts. We should have had some kind of like haunted 13 thing. Oh, well.
Oh, well, next time.
Speaking of 13, Friday the 13th, the movies where the folks couldn't sleep at night because they were afraid of Freddy Krueger. I have been having these terrible situation where I cannot sleep at night. And so I've just this week started taking melatonin 10 milligrams.
How's that working out for you?
Dude, the first night I did it, I woke up and I was groggy till about 2 p.m. the next day.
Really?
I was not a fun person to be around, Kelly Patterson.
Mm.
And after that first night, I was like, you know what? I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to try it for the rest of the week. After that first night, I slept amazing every single night.
Congratulations. Good sleep is so important.
Thanks. And you know, as soon as you tell other people about that, they all want to Debbie down whatever it is that you're doing. So as soon as I was telling someone else about this, they're like, well, you know, you can't do that because your body will quit to making melatonin and then you'll never go to sleep again. I'm like, what? What are you talking about?
Is that true? Is that true?
I'm sure there's some truth to it. I'm sure that all the stuff that we take is probably not very good for us, but we do it anyway, don't we?
We do. We do.
Yeah. So today we are going to be talking about Pump'nFlo. Are you excited about this?
I truly am excited about Pump'nFlo. It's one of my favorite product names.
It is a good name. Whoever came up with that marketing name, they're pretty smart.
We might hear about that today. I don't know. I don't know if we
What?
We might.
Do you want to know something about me, Kelly?
I always want to know something about you, Ryan.
For a brief moment in my career, I actually designed pump skids.
I did not know that about you.
Yep, I had to
You have done
fly.
everything.
I've done a little bit of everything. I can make a good sub sandwich. I worked for a Subway, or actually it wasn't even a Subway. It was something else. I forgot what it was called. But so I can make a mean sub if you need that.
Nice.
Or I can design a pump skid. However, it probably wouldn't be that good these days. So today, our guests are Evan Crabtree and Erik Roethlinger. What's up, guys?
How y'all doing?
How's it going, Kelly and Ryan?
We're
Doing great.
excited to have you.
Yes. So you guys, before we get started, I want to make sure that we keep with what we normally do with this show. And what we would like to do is we'd like to hear from our guests, how in the world did they get from high school to where they're at today? I'm going to go with Evan first, if we can. Evan, how did you get from high school to where we're at today? Take us on that journey.
So that journey is, that's 30 years ago, class of 94. So it's been a while. I went to college at NC State, did engineering. Matter of fact, did chemical engineering and graduated in May of 99. Actually had classes with Joe Britt as a side note. He was class of 2000. So when he got hired, I saw him and I was like, wait a minute, I know you. So I was coming out of engineering, not really knowing what I wanted to do. I kind of wanted to go towards a route of technical sales. Didn't know anything about the company. Heat Transfer Sales at the time was the name. Just knew that I wanted to do something in sales. So interviewed with Train, Heat Transfer Sales, and a couple others, and I landed there in Raleigh in the spring of '99. And I have worn many hats for heat transfer sales and Hoffman Hydronics over the years, and various roles of sales, marketing. I told Kelly I used to be the amateur marketing person that he transferred sales before we hired a professional. I've managed inventory. I've been in a number of roles, and they've kind of used me as a utility man over the years. So Joe jokes that I've got a lot of the tribal knowledge here at Hoffman Hydronics. How did I get in my current role? We have expanded into other territories in the last couple of years. So our department is growing. We moved into a larger facility. And so I was already helping Erik and his group out, kind of being sort of a liaison between the sales group and the Pump'nFlo group, and just became a natural fit where I was added into the Pump'nFlo department. So, I currently help with design, estimating, just that type of thing. So it's been real good to join the Pump'nFlo team, and we're really excited about the growth here.
Very cool. And then Erik.
Well, I just got plugged in one day and woke up, and all of a sudden I knew hydronics like back of my hand, and I was able to do it. It was incredible. Isn't that how it works for everybody?
Yeah, everybody.
It is so funny. Before I get started, I do want to say, a lot of people that join Hoffman Hydronics or any of the Hoffman companies, they typically come from engineering backgrounds. And hydronics is probably a page in your fluids textbook. So there aren't many people that come in to Hoffman Hydronics as experts. So the door is wide open for everyone. My particular path started from high school. I went to try my hand at small business entrepreneurship at UNCG, and went through that program, and never along the way was I inspired by it. Actually got into leading the Baptist Student Union as their music minister on campus. And then I decided, hey, this is fun. So I decided to go down to Gardner-Webb University and get a music ministry degree. Finished that up, worked in a church for about a year, and realized that I don't like having to follow, a structure for playing music. It kind of kills the freedom there a little bit. And I actually found out that I'm enjoying music less and less as it's become my job. So I decided to save my passion for music and try to find something else to do. And at the time, my wife was going through her schooling, and she was working part-time at O'Neill Steel, and they had an opening, and she said, hey, while you're out there looking, why don't you just get a job here? And I started in inside sales, but very quickly got pulled over into the engineering team over there. But I wasn't getting paid very well because I didn't have a degree in it, but I was just helping the engineers. So I decided to take myself back to school yet again, get my mechanical engineering degree, and a month after graduating, I started at the time heat transfer sales as a draftsman, designing Pump'nFlo skids. And then my predecessor, Steve Mahaffey, decided that he was ready to retire in 2018, I believe. So in 2017, he decided to hand the keys over to me, and I was scared to death because all I've done is made drawings. I don't know how to manage a production team. So I've been the Pump'nFlo manager since 2017, and still learning as I go.
Very cool. Yeah, I had a back to the music thing about whenever it's your career, you kind of fall out of love with it. So I was a musician in a rock and roll band for several years. And when you get to that 100th time playing that same song, it just loses it for you, man.
Right.
You lose the love for it.
Yep.
So similar vein, I seem to have gotten my love back for music after I took off from it. Well, very good. So Pump'nFlo, I love I love pump skids, and I think you guys are beyond pump skids, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But the reason why, from an engineering standpoint, I love pump skids is because I have found in the past that a lot of people screw up pumps and how they should be installed and all the things that go into that, all the way from the vibration isolation and how it should be connected. And I think by having a pump skid, one, you condense everything uh, that is needed for a mechanical room, but two, you make sure that it's done absolutely correctly. Um, and if you're doing your job right from a pump skid standpoint, that you've engineered it right to where that the head pressure is correct, that the in and out is correct, and any kind of controls associated with it is correct. So you kind of you dummy proof a lot of things that can happen with a mechanical contractor. So I guess why in the world did Pump'-n-Flow get started?
Well, that goes back, to sometime in the early '90s. A gentleman named Matt Rogers, who's still with us as more of a consultant role. He was asked to build a package for a sales guy, and so before that, we had other vendors that did pump packages, but they might have been more. This is what we have in the catalog, maybe not custom offering. So the president then was Ken Stevens, and he really did not want to get into the fabrication, business. He'd rather deal with the vendors, and so he kind of advised Matt against this. But so Matt Rogers took it upon himself to take some equipment to his shop. He had a nice big shop, and he welded this up, brought it back, and built the skid. And of course, Ken was a little bit upset that he'd done that, but so he thought about it and slept on it. Came back the next day and said, "Okay, what do you need to make this happen? Let's." So he kind of changed his mind on that, and so it kind of took off from there. And around 1994, we started officially putting serial numbers on these skids. And Erik, I think we just shipped out the 1,000th skid the other week here on our brand new overhead crane.
That's right.
So
Wow.
that was exciting. But yeah, so that was kind of the beginnings of it.
So the reason why I'm guessing you need a serial number is because you're effectively making an end product. You're taking different parts and pieces. I mean, similar to like an air-cooled chiller, the places that I've been into and done factory tours, they don't necessarily make the coils. They don't necessarily make the compressors, but they source all of those things and they come together to make this finished product as a chiller. And I think in a similar sense, Pump'-n-Flow is doing the same thing, that you're taking this pump, and you're taking, this all-purpose valve or multi-purpose valve, and you're putting all of this, temperature gauges, and all that makes an end product. Is that right?
That's right. Yep. We source all of our equipment. Many of the skids that we build are produced with all of the equipment that are on our line card. But that we can put anything on a Pump'-n-Flow skid because it's our proprietary product. But we do like using our own stuff. And then the serial number, like you said, it's because it's an end final product from us, but also it comes in very handy when 20 years from now someone's having to work on one of our skids and they need replacement parts for this thing and they don't have the documentation, so they just call us to give us a serial number for that skid, and we can get them anything that they need.
Mm. And so with that being a finished good, so I'm guessing you have a ETL rating on your product or UL listing or something like that?
We are ETL listed, yes.
Okay, very cool. So whenever you are putting this together, do you guys have the ability to, make sure that this thing has onboard controls that can speak to the other pieces of equipment to say start, stop, or whatever pieces of data that they may want?
Absolutely. Yep. The control side can get as as complicated as the customer wants it to be. Many of our skids are just power wiring on them. You can turn them off and turn them on. But we also have, skids, especially our boiler skids, have a lot of sensor wiring going on. But it can get complicated. It's not our strong suit, but we work with our partners very well to make the final product work very well.
So where do you normally, what does your typical customer look like? Like, how do they say, hey, I want a skid and I'm going to call Pump'-n-Flow? Like, where does that, how does that start?
Evan, you want to take that one?
Yeah. So there's a few different means that comes in. Sometimes it may be on a set of plans where it's specified a prefabricated pump skid. And that's, so then we're, trying to figure out exactly what's covered in our scope. Other times it's a design build type of thing where a salesman has a client that has a customer that wants to do a prefabricated pump skid. So those are kind of the two main avenues. We have been around long enough to where we have replaced some of our own pump skids that have been out there in the field. And so, yeah, having that we've scanned in a lot of those most of those old files. So we've got a lot of the data from the 90s. And so we did that. Matter of fact, earlier this year, we replaced a few pump skids at a community college. So those are mainly, like I said, sometimes it could be a design build from somebody wanting to do a chiller skid or a rental chiller skid and things like that. So.
Gotcha. And then, it seemed like the industrial market loved pump skids. Do you find a lot of industrial clients are reaching out to you guys to put together pump skids for you?
We kind of focus on the commercial side mainly because of the size of the components that start to come in when you get into the industrial world. And right now, our shop is maxed at about a 16-inch pipe diameter. And that's not just about the pipe size, that's really about the equipment that usually goes along with that pipe size.
Sure.
So as we continue to grow and get bigger, we might be able to open that up and gain more industrial opportunities. We're open to it. We're just not yet set up to really go after that market.
So is everything you're doing, have you ever done anything other than the median of water application? Have you ever had a chemical or something that you've had to put together on a pump skid?
We've had a couple of process skids. The one that always comes to mind for me is actually one of the first ones I worked on when I joined. And the medium was hot oil. And that skid, that whole project was very interesting because it was actually 3 different systems. And they only had so much space to do all this in. So we were combining 3 systems on one skid, coupling that with hot oil, which with hot oil, you can't use threaded pipe. You have to have welded connections everywhere, no matter what the pipe size. So that skid is extremely dense. It was many months of engineering time, and then probably a month and a half of fabrication time for it to get out the door. So it's rare that we see a skid come through that doesn't use water as its medium or steam, but it has happened.
Do you find that whenever you're putting these together that you have a lot of need for things like heat exchangers on your skid to just make sure that the water that you are touching doesn't mess up your skid itself?
Absolutely. We've got pump skids. We have boiler skids. We have what we call heat transfer modules, and those will have some form of a heat exchanger on it, whether it be a shell and tube, which transfers the heat from steam to the water, or even plate and frame heat exchangers, which come in both variants, steam to water or water to water. But it's pretty typical that there's a heat exchanger somewhere on a skid, unless it's just a pump skid.
So as a service guy, You can make these skids pretty tight to where they're hard to kind of get in there and work on it. Do y'all make sure to think through the serviceability of these skids to where you can get to the strainers and you can get to where you can service and lubricate and change out things as needed?
Absolutely. We always hold the recommended service clearances for the equipment. And then we try to go above and beyond that to give them a little bit more room, especially between pumps. But that, that comes at a cost. So we work with the owner or the engineer to work out a good balance between what they can afford, what they need, what would make it easier for the next guy, and comes up with a good solution.
So there's some places to where they want temporary pump skids and they want to actually move them into different locations throughout their facility. Have you ever had it to where you've had to design one that's able to move in multiple places?
We have, and we are more and more.
Hmm.
That's becoming almost, I don't know, in the last year, Evan and I have had multiple requests for something on a trailer or something that's going to be at this building for a certain amount of time and move over to that building. Um, I don't know what's behind that, why people want to be so mobile these days, but they come in with their own hurdles for us to overcome. Um,
Hmm.
but we've done it. We're getting better at it, and it's if the industry's headed that way, that we'll head that way too.
Yeah. I found the military actually really likes that ability to see things, to be able to transport from different places on their base is kind of a recent popular thing. So from a design standpoint, the opportunity comes in. Take me through kind of how you go from conception design to where it's at. I mean, is that something that you're putting on Revit, on AutoCAD? Like what are you taking through to get your bill of material and making sure that everything works right and testing and all of that?
Evan, you want to speak on the preliminary stages, and I'll talk on the skid design?
Yeah, yeah. When a request first comes in from one of the sales folks, we've got some that are more experienced than others that have been, as we've grown, we've got some newer sales folks. So I've kind of been tasked with making sure they they've got all the upfront details covered as far as what is the scope of equipment where that's going to be inside the box. Quote, what kind of controls are we needing? We're doing variable speed drives, or we're doing a single point power panel type thing. So I'm kind of addressing those things with the sales folks before it gets to the design, to Erik's design team with trying to do a layout and a CAD drawing. So
And that's an important thing to make sure that it's one source of power that connects to this skid, and then from there you have the electrical to where basically the entire thing powers up. So yeah, that's a lot to make sure you take into account.
yeah, and just checking behind, make sure we have the right header size on the piping.
The design team will take whatever selections have been made, it in pipe sizes, and if there's a layout in mind, we'll try to keep those things in mind as we design those as well. But we'll, on the first pass for an estimate, we'll just throw something in AutoCAD real quick, and just to give somebody an idea of the footprint of this thing and a kind of overall layout, so they can get an idea of where their piping might need to come from in the room, or whether it's outside or on a roof. And then from there, we'll work on getting more specific. If they end up liking the price and the project moves forward and we get a PO and it gets into submittal phase, then we start to really get specific on all the nuts and bolts and sensors and all the minutia of the thing. We really dig into everything, and we'll provide a final as produced drawing. We use Autodesk Inventor for that. It has a nice 3D isometric view. You can see everything very clearly. That's also what ends up producing all of our production drawings that go out to the floor, so the guys out there can see what weldments they need to make, and it gets down to smallest little details, but in that process, that's the one where we really get into the weeds on these things. So there's no surprises when it comes out. When that thing moves out the door, it looks exactly like it does on that drawing. So everyone is fully aware of what they're getting.
Are you seeing a lot of pro press or Victaulic connections, or is it typically welded for you guys?
It's typically welded for us or threaded, depending on the pipe size. I don't see the Pro Press come through on the specs too much. Not for the prefabricated skids, at least. I know that's becoming more of a field pipe thing. Recently, we've been getting into some of the plastics. So we've had a couple of projects come through using HDPE pipe, which is typically a pipeline material. But more and more folks are wanting to try to use that in unexpected way. It's very cheap, but it's got great performance. It's easy to install. So we're starting to get into that world too. But I'd say mainly we're still in the carbon steel world.
Now, do you have the ability to present an fully insulated skid for your end user?
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll contract that out, but we'll have someone come to the shop and do that for us.
Okay.
I will say on that, it doesn't travel well. If something's going to be insulated, I would suggest someone use some kind of covered truck to protect that insulation from all the road shrapnel.
Yeah, absolutely. Or wrap it with something as well. So what about testing? Do you offer any kind of testing capabilities for your skids, or is it kind of a plug and play? And
so so for power, we've got the capability of actually plugging the thing in and turning it on, and we can even pre-program drives here on the floor. On the pressure side, we use pneumatic testing. So we'll fill the system with air, and unless it's plastic pipe, of course. We'll fill the system with air to about 100 psi and let it sit for an hour and check the pressure gauge and see if we've lost any pressure. And if we have, we'll poke around and see if we can find a leak.
Gotcha. So is there a product that you have that's kind of the bread and butter of Pump'nFlo that you seem to churn out more often than anything else? Or are you kind of always just unique design, whatever it is, you've got to put it together?
Yeah, I would say your most common or your kind of duplex 2-pump chill water or hot water pumping skids with air elimination systems and makeup water and those types of things. But no, it's a range of applications. Like I said, Erik was talking about, it could be a heat transfer module where you have a steam to water heat exchanger. It could be a combination plant where you have boilers and an indirect fired water heater. It's and we've done some steam PRV stations and things like that. And we do dabble in some process chill water on the industrial side, but it's mostly water. We're not dealing with chemicals. It's mostly water or glycol mixture. So I would say, I don't know, as far as the most common, every system's a little bit custom because we can tailor to, because the cool thing is we're always putting multiple sets of eyes on these and thinking about the clearances and the access to the code requirements for the electrical panels. I mean, where you have to have like your 3 feet in front of a panel. So the guys are really good about thinking about how are they going to work on this thing once they get it, how we're going to get it in the room. That's I've had sales folks send me a request for a skid and there's just a 3-foot door and a lot of equipment in the way, and and I have to say, hey, we can't really get a large skid in here. Although we have done skids where we will split them down the middle, and they'll go through a narrow passageway and then bolt them back together in the field to go get creative that way. So,
Yeah, there's a lot of facilities where, something's going down the service elevator, or something needs to go down the stairs and make a turn before it gets into this nice wide open mechanical room. But like Evan said, we'll design a full skid and just chop it up for you, and it'll come to you in maybe 3 or 4 pieces, and all you got to do is slap a couple bolts together, and you've got a finished product there. So we can certainly roll with it.
That was going to be one of my next questions. Thank you for answering that. So, for those listening, the place where they're putting this together, their manufacturing location is in Greensboro, North Carolina. So, are y'all willing? How far is your reach? Like, are you just southeast? Are you just the Carolinas? Like, how far will Pump'nFlo go?
We have shipped skids to Mexico. So we're worldwide, man. We can send it anywhere we want to. It's our own product. We don't have a territory, and that's actually one of the advantages of using Pump'nFlo. There are some salespeople in some territories that don't have access to our full line card of products. But if they put it on a Pump'nFlo skid, they can sell it there. Because that becomes our product. So we can ship anywhere we want.
Gotcha. Very cool. So the Carolinas and Mexico.
Carolinas and Mexico. That's it. No, you heard me right.
So anywhere. That's fantastic. So is there anything that you're not willing to put on a skid? And I say that not to be, funny about it, but like I've seen it to where almost like a skid solution, a covered skid solution, to where basically the entire mechanical plant shows up on a skid. I mean, how far are you guys willing to take these skids?
I don't think there's a limit. We've done that before too. We have full pump houses that we've shipped out that go out in a nice fiberglass enclosure. You walk in there and you've got an entire mechanical room, and they're waiting for you, heated and everything. Usually our limitations come from the equipment itself. So if there's a big piece of equipment that needs to go on a skid, I usually suggest to leave that off the skid, because by the time you put, let's say it's a chiller, and you need a pump skid to go with that chiller, I usually suggest to leave the chiller off the skid, because really all we're adding there is a little bit of steel underneath that chiller, where you could really just set the chiller on the pad and put our pump skid next to it.
Yeah.
But that's not to say we won't do it. It's just hard to argue the value when it gets to very large pieces of equipment.
Very cool. So what is the wildest, I don't know if wild's the right word, but what is the most unusual skid that you guys have ever had to put together?
Unusual. I hate going right back to it, but it's that hot oil skid for me.
I was going to ask.
It was when I first started, and I haven't seen anything like it since. It was just there was so much constraints upon our design. So, it had to fit in such a small space. The pipe had to come from this location in the room. They wanted 3 different systems in that room, and they hardly had room for one system. I'd say that's the most interesting to me.
I have a question about the hot oil real quick. So I'm assuming you're talking about motor oil, right? It's not restaurant vegetable oil, right?
It was actually essential oils that they were.
Essential oils, lavender, a little lavender.
Yeah, it was lavender. Actually, that's exactly it. It was the Christmas. It was the Christmas blend.
Listen, I'm here to ask the dumb questions. That's what I'm here for.
That's not a dumb question.
If I remember right, I think this was in the food processing world. So I don't know exactly what they were using that hot oil for, but it wasn't like what goes in your car or anything like that.
Okay, so it was a vegetable oil. Interesting.
Yeah, It might have been a thermal fluid, like a thermal oil. For sometimes you can run that really hot. So I don't know that it was actually vegetable oil.
Yeah. It wasn't
deep
stainless
fryer.
piping. I know that. We used carbon steel, so it wasn't food product going through it.
All right.
Evan, is that also the most interesting one for you as well, or is there one that was interesting to you that kind of comes to mind?
I'm looking at I'm going way back, looking at some of the old marketing material I did back in 2006. And we sourced a fabricated stainless steel buffer tank for a process cooling. And so it was a square tank, and it's something we don't do every day. And so I was going back and looking at the file on that one. And so that was kind of neat. So that's one that sticks out for me.
Very cool. Well, Kelly, do you have any more questions for Evan and Erik?
I do not. I'm excited about Pump'nFlo.
Mm-hmm. Oh, where did the name come from? Who came up with it? Do y'all know?
I didn't research that. I guess it would have been back when Jeff Vestal and Ken Stevens were part of the leadership here. So I'll have to research who actually came up with that.
I bet it was Joe Britt.
Well, no, this goes back before.
It was
Joe.
before?
It goes back before me.
Evan, this was your moment on podcast that other people were listening. You could have said it was me.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, right.
This could have been your
Forever.
moment to shine. Forever.
Somebody would have probably texted me and called me out on that.
Doesn't matter.
But,
it's out there in the world if you would have
That's
said
right.
it.
Yeah.
First lie wins.
I will tell you, I was born on Friday the 13th, so that's a fun fact for you.
Oh.
Man, there we go.
Nice. I like it.
We've
That
come
explains so much about you.
Yep. We've officially come full circle. Thank you.
We certainly have.
Well, cool. So if people are enjoying this, Kelly, what should they do?
They should follow us. They should like us. They should subscribe on any podcast platform near you.
If you're watching YouTube, you would have seen that Kelly now has motivational posters behind her, which usually when you have those posters, it's to motivate yourself.
100%. Yeah.
Well, it adds a lot of color behind you. It looks great. Well, very good.
Thanks.
Well, this is another episode of HVAC-ology. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.
Took a rocket past Saturn. Things don't seem to matter much to me anymore. Got lost inside a daydream. Get sick of all schemes they play on their machines. I lost so many words as I got older. You would have thought I would have stored them in a manila folder. Accidentally wrote these words down. Thought all the best of me faded in an endless sea. But you always bring me back at your blue eyes. 20 years of staring at that freckle on your left shoulder. Who would have thought all I needed was to think of you to bring back the words inside? But you always bring me back at your blue eyes. 20 years of staring at that freckle on your left shoulder. Who would have thought all I needed was to think of you to bring back the words inside of me? I drove an hour to see you. Things just seem to matter more to me anyway. Got lost in reality, no answers to cancer, we never got to talk. Lost so many friends as